Hello, everybody. How are you? I wanted to go over the Roman Doedecahedron because a lot of people are going over it. So, oh, there we go. I lost connection with my mic there for a second. I'm hitting everything. This is the most totally professional video that you will ever see about the Roman Doedecahedron. Not because I know how to make videos, because I don't. I want to go over all of these things. People keep guessing and proposing theories. There is only one thing that the dodecahedron anyone can say about it for certain. It is a test of skill. And I'll tell you why. And before people say, "Oh, you're dismissing all the other theories." No, I'm not. I mean, it could literally be used for anything else. But it is the most basic concept of anything that it's like, "Oh, yeah, oh, hello, Captain Obvious." And I'll tell you why. Anything that a craftsman makes is a test of skill. Anything. A fancy sword, a test of skill, right? A video game, a test of skill, right? So, yeah, Captain Obvious. These dodecahedrons are tests of skill. Um, Secondly, they're not Roman. Okay, they're not Roman. If they were Roman, there would be some sort of literature, clay tablet, imagery, a bathhouse, um, little thing, made out of tiles. There would be something. Romans recorded everything. That's why the Dark Ages are called the Dark Ages after the Roman Empire fell. Because, well, besides the fact that there was actually kind of like a cloud of darkness caused from a bunch of volcanic eruptions and a mini little ice age, um, it's mostly caused from a lack of widespread communication and information. Did that mean that everybody suddenly became stupid and stopped talking or writing? No, it doesn't. So when people say Dark Ages is a misnomer, they're full of shit too. Dark Ages is because there was no unified, broad communication in Europe compared to Rome. It would be as if our level of communication now was reduced to a level of communication from the 1950s. People would say, "Oh, wow, people didn't have access to a lot of information. It was a mini Dark Ages." It's one thing to progress, it is another thing to regress. And that's why it's called the Dark Ages. There was regression in terms of communication. And I'm making that point, that distinction, so people understand that Romans talked about everything. They wrote really nasty, gross fart jokes and genital jokes. They recorded everything. you know, um, There's nothing. They didn't record nothing, anything about this. And these things, as this Wikipedia article correctly states, were found. They say, well, between Roman and Celtic, because Celtic is so abused anymore. Interaction. A lot of people identify them as coming from the Gauls, which is again starting to become really abused in terms of just ascribing any tribe out there to be a Gaulish or Celtic tribe. But that's basically true. They were only found in certain areas, and it was mostly outside of the main Roman control, So they're not Roman. They were clearly a test of skill, but then again, so is everything. Uh, Now, some people have gone ahead and said that this has been used as a marker to indicate, hey, if you want to see my level of craftsmanship, this is what I'm capable of doing in terms of casting. Um, that seems to be very plausible, but again, you would do that with swords and whatever. The interesting aspect, though, with that claim of using it as a marker or a badge of honor in terms of blacksmithing is saying, this is our current technological level. We can create this thing. You see how smooth it is. You see how pristine it is. If you do business with our tribe, with our city or with our village, this is the quality of items that we can produce for you. That seems way more plausible than any other explanation. So it's not necessarily a test of skill for an individual, but it would be a representation of the technological level for a society. And the reason why I favor that, I'll give you a little background. For about 15 cumulative years, I worked as an archaeologist and an anthropologist, in ways where I did a lot of research, or if somebody uh, people bounce things back from me. I'm a family archaeological firm. I would do research. I would supplement. I would, various things, solve problems in a lot of ways. So that's my experience, and I've taken that experience in my life in terms of writing and producing things. Um, you know, history courses, and practical applications of history, etc. So I've got quite a bit of experience where a lot of people who are making these videos have none. And I will gladly put my 15 plus years, 25 years total, 15 solid years, I guess is what you could say, up against any test. If anybody wants to, I'll put my reputation on the line for that. And I will say that the reason why I favor that idea, that not that it's a test of skill, but a representation of a technological level, is because if it was a test of skill, you would have thousands of these. A technological representation, however, we would only have one for every village or social group. And there are only a couple of hundred of these, right? So you have a couple hundred of these instead of thousands. All right. It's not something that you would put on a mural. If your society is demonstrating its technological level, you're not going to set it in stone and say, "We forever know how to make the wheel." Societies don't do that. They're always for the next biggest thing. When you're dealing with technology and saying, "Hey, what can you do?" You say, "Okay, yeah, this is our item. We have it here. We have access to producing cast iron, cast bronze, cast copper, and you can see the detail with which we're able to work with wax, and the detail and level at which we're able to control fire and forges to produce this type of item." And if you see it's really hard, bang, bang, bang on a rock, toss it back and forth. Don't knock it. Don't hit it with a sword. because this is nice little thing here. That makes sense. And if it were a religious thing, it would be written in stone or painted in stone, petroglyphs or pictographs. You would see something. You would even see little tiny models used by people who believe in some sort of religious aspect. Take for example, the cross, right? Symbol of Christianity. Every person who's a Christian has a cross. People who may not be Christian, who their family was, they might have a cross from the grandmother. Everyone has one. And then the really devout people have a real piece of the cross, right? Maybe that's not as popular now since the advent of the internet, but oh boy, the real pieces of the cross, right? Big thing for centuries. Okay. If this were a religious artifact, a religious observance, and people who participate in that religion would have something like that. If it was priest only, there would be some sort of sacred text, there would be some sort of sacred picture, there would be some sort of sacred something. And so it can't be religious. It can't be religious at all. Now, some people have said astronomical units. Well, this thing does show a gradient. And that gradient are the size of the holes. The problem is, none of those holes are suitable to a specific unit of measurement. None. It's just they exist as not a purely decorative thing, but they are partially decorative in addition to being a gradient relative to themselves. So it's not a standard unit of measurement, because a standard unit of measurement would have a standard. This outside of itself, it would not be a self-referential standard. It is clearly not used in arts and crafts, as many people have pointed out, because there would be a lot of wear and tear on them. Except if it were somehow used for very thin threading. Although, where's the threading in all of the ones that are found? None exist. And trust me, threading can last for centuries. Especially if you wax seal it. A lot of threading is wax sealed to protect it from the elements. So you've got a lot of things that it can't be, which is why defaulting to trade representation is the only thing that it's like a process of elimination. That's the one thing that can't be eliminated. An item of quality. Someone in a document, it might be referred to as, they produced an item of quality demonstrating their level of technological skill. That could be it. It could be something else. The fact that you don't have so many records discounts so many things. To my knowledge, none of these things have been found with any kind of threading, any kind of leather strapping, any kind of yarn. I know people keep bringing up yarn. Yeah, no, I'm not that far back in that way. No. Knitting, I have no idea what they're talking about when they're talking about knitting. It might be like the British use of the word knitting, like knitting with threading or whatever. Except there's no evidence of that, right? So no evidence of any religious observance. No evidence of measurement because it's self-referential instead of external extra-referential or external referential or xenoreferential, however you want to put it. No reference of that. No reference of anything with very little wear and tear representative. Now this one is one where you see it's broken there. Here's one thing that I think is fascinating. The nodules on these dodecahedrons aren't always the same size. That's not a dodecahedron. That's a 20-sided die. Anyway, the nodules aren't always the same size, but that may be due to the casting process or a demonstration of different sizes, right? Some people have said leatherworking. Those nodules could actually be used, I guess, in certain ways, except there's no evidence of anything that had been made with holes punched, and they don't really look like great punch holes. See, I'm trying to go down everything that people theorize here, and there's nothing there. And then there's the whole idea of ritualistic. The one thing that it definitely is not. It is definitely not ritualistic. Because you would see something. In dealing with years of American Indian tribes, and for many reasons I do not say native, for many reasons, many actual scientific, historical reasons, native is a bad term. The tribes of the Americas, tribes of this continent, in that term, dating back hundreds of years before written history was known on this continent. You have detailed petroglyphs and pictographs that you would see use of tools in action. Atlatls as part of hunting for large animals, part of warfare against other people. Atlatls next to bows, etc. All dated correctly, showing overlaps that a lot of scholars don't pay attention to. But the point is, hairstyles that are painted or etched into rock. We know these things because records were made. The dress of shaman, right? With elements of birds, elements of game, stag, buffalo, foxes, rabbits, little footprints, things that are important to religious beliefs always have a record. Even the phases of the moon, positions of the sun, standing rock formations that have been left untouched for 1,200 years. Waiting to be discovered. Nothing like that with these things. Nothing. There's no way in hell it has anything to do with ritual. And the one thing that is so irritating, specifically with European archaeologists or anthropologists, when they see something they don't understand, it was probably used in some sort of ritual. And I swear to God, that modus operandi came straight from the mid-Victorian era. The pseudo-intellectual era of, I don't quite understand it, but I'm going to say that I understand it by claiming it's a ritual, and how dare anybody question the religious behavior of these other peoples. Because as an intellectual, I respect these other peoples and the religion. That is really the subtext of the default. It was religious or ritual. That's the subtext, and it's been going on for like 150 years now. from the Victorian era, the subtext of thought, and I say Victorian era, but I'm including the French, which are basically the founders of modern archaeology, straight from Napoleon, on through to the British. The French and British preserved millions of archaeological findings, and you'll find millions of them in the London Museum. Cross between grand scale theft and preservation. Where does theft begin and where does preservation end? Right? It is true, though, a lot of that stuff would not have been preserved if it hadn't been taken back to London. Or even, people never talk about the artifacts in France. But there are a plethora of artifacts in France, right along with the British. But that's just it. There would have been some evidence in all those collections of some sort of ritual. They are not ritual, right? They are not used in any sort of craft. Otherwise, you would find... So, see, this isn't... when talking wear and tear, that's not wear and tear. That's just simply broken. You see? I don't know if you can see my... oh, you can't see my thing here. Let's see if I can turn this on. Properties. Capture cursor. There we go. I'll capture the cursor. Okay, so so watch where my cursor is. This right here is broken. It's not wear and tear. This right here is broken. That's not wear and tear. This is like eroded. It's not wear and tear. You see that crease right here? With my cursor is going over the crease on these items. These creases are almost perfect, as if they were the day they were cast. Those are perfect creases. These are perfect creases. Wear and tear would show an eroding of these creases in a way where it would be soft, softened. And let's see if I can get a picture of Moses. Bronze statue of Moses with toes eroded. Let's see if I can get an image there. There's a very famous bronze statue of Moses. Pretty sure it's Moses. My search terms are not coming up. God. Well, I'm sorry. I'm totally unprepared because a lot of this is off the cuff. Let's see here. Bronze statue of Moses. Or I'll just say Moses with toes eroded. Polished. On people touching. Let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. Maybe they're not totally eroded. Here we go. Okay. You see how that is heavily polished. That's because people were touching it. Just touching it. Just touching it. There's another statue. So it might not be... Oh, is this the one? St. Peter. Oh. With toes eroded. St. Peter. It's St. Peter, not Moses. Okay, Moses has a polish, right? Because people would touch it. And they since stopped people from touching Moses' toes. But you could tell how it was polished. You saw that. St. Peter... Look at this. This is the damage that oil does just from someone gently touching. Just gently touching. This is a reality. Metal. Metal is malleable, even when it's not heated. And the basic oils of the skin polish bronze and erode it. Anything with any sort of workmanship, if it had to be used to produce something, you would see thousands of these. First of all, not hundreds, not like 128 or 150. You'd see thousands of these, pieces of thousands of these, eroded, even caved in. You don't. That's why it can't be a tool. And if it were a die, same damn thing. People would be playing it all the time. You'd see things with nodules that are nubbed down. These things, they're not nubbed down. Look at that. That is a crease that has survived for centuries. If it was handled by man, these creases would not exist. These creases would not exist. These nubbins would have been worn down. The edges would not be creased. So, test of skill. Yeah. Technological representation of a society. More, yeah. Lack of objects means it could have been just a test of skill for every single bronze caster out there. Could not have been used. The perfection of the creases, and this is like a destroyed one. This is like a destroyed one with holes everywhere. Those creases would have been gone before it even eroded naturally. Those creases are there right now. They are almost perfect. I bet very little has changed since this thing was cast in that area that I zoomed in on. Religious, no record. So it is not a tool. It was not used for games because there's nothing that has been nubbined down. None of these have looked like that. I'm using an example from one of the worst examples, worst images that you could possibly have. These creases. You could say this might be a little worn down. Maybe. But none of these are uniform. Even worn down, none of these are uniform in a way where a meaningful way. I don't know why this thing is in this picture. This isn't even part of the same situation. So I just want to add my thoughts. That's it. I'm just repeating myself at this point. So I hope that I've convinced you. Now there could be some other use for them too, as long as it isn't like a major tool use. There's clearly no evidence of it being religious, so there's no religious use at all. There's no significance in terms of anything other than it was used in bronze casting for a society that was just learning to perfect bronze casting. Because it wasn't Roman, but the Gauls and the Celts, broad definition here, this is the era that they were learning to cast bronze in their individual villages. Right? So, I don't believe they were for individual blacksmiths. I think that they were produced by the village caster, by the village metal worker, for representation of the village's technological level. Which is the reason why that's the only explanation that fits is because that's the only type of explanation where you wouldn't see some sort of written, pictorial, or any sort of historical record of it. Because if it was like a surveying tool, all of them would be uniform to a measurement beyond, externally, but they're their units of measurement only related, self-referential, related to themselves. So can't really be a surveying tool. Can't really be any other tool, otherwise they'd be worn down a hell of a lot more than they are. Can't be a game piece. They would be worn down a hell of a lot more than they are. And that's just from physical wear and tear. So, test of skill, I mean, obviously, anything's a test of skill. Technological representation is a slightly different terminology that should be used. And yes, it represents that. Now, they could have also been used for something else. Yes, entirely. But nothing religious. Nothing on the importance of the level where they would have had a record. So if you can come up with another idea of something that does not require a record, that's in the running. Except the problem is you can't rule those things out since there isn't a record. That's the whole problem. You can't rule them out. You can only rule them in. You can only rule other things out that require a record. That's it. And that's part of the reason why people are likely not going to find an explanation for these unless they find some sort of record somewhere that says exactly what they were used for. So things that have been ruled out, that's the process of elimination. Things that are ruled in by default are the only things that I've said here. So have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. Love y'all. Bye.